students are not taught the right skills in the right point of time. They are only taught to memorize. Nothing is going to happen by memorizing because all these memorizing stuffs are going to go away. You don't need a memorizing, parrot at all. Even the toy will not exist. Toys are also now becoming more intelligent.
After studying for 16 years in the school, 3 years of graduation or 4 years of engineering, that's about 20 years. And after 20 years, if a child is not able to earn 20,000 per month, then what are we talking about?
Thank you for joining the Change I Am Possible, which is India's first future tech podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Ivel, and today I'm super delighted to have a conversation with two individuals who are disrupting the education industry. Now, our education industry or India's rote learning industry has got so many problems. It has created stressed out students. Besides that, there is the students' loan. The banks have stopped giving student loans because the data suggests that the outstanding loan amount or student debt is somewhere around 85,000 crores. There is the traditional education systems which is becoming more and more unaffordable day by day. And on the opposite side is MOOCs, edtechs who are giving away quality education on the internet for very little amount and at times free. These MOOCs, massive open online courses, have some of the top universities, from Harvard, Stanford, MIT. So there is a huge shift happening in the education industry. I was having a conversation with Dr. Sugata Mitra. He's a pioneer in the education space and he's known for his hole-in-the-wall innovation. What he had done was he had created holes in the walls in slums in Calcutta and he had inserted computers over there. And when he came back after 3 months, he realized that those underprivileged kids who didn't know anything about computers taught themselves. So he believes that education should be non-linear. It should be fun. He believes that examinations should be a collaborative effort where students get to leverage the power of internet, because today the biggest teacher in the world is internet. The entire education paradigm is changing. So I'm super excited for this conversation with the founders of 21K School, which claims to be India's first online school. So welcome to the show, and I would like you to introduce yourself. And so maybe one of you guys can start.
Thank you, Eddie. It's an honor, talking to you. And we have been always passionate about education. So myself, I worked in Middle East for 8 years for a company called NLP. I was heading the supply chain, and then I came back to India. So always, I'm an avid reader. I read a lot in terms of books to an extent, but articles on what is happening, what is not happening, what are the problems around the world. And one thing strikingly I saw in many countries, because I've traveled more than 25 countries, is the root cause of any issues in those countries would be linked to education. Like, we have a huge youth population today state. And if you see most of the youth, the biggest problem they have is they have, literacy, they have degrees and everything. But are they educated? That question of are they educated, if you ask me, no. I would clearly say no. During my work thing, how I am arriving at to say that no is, I have personally interviewed during my previous profession some people. They are electrical engineers. Some even have 1 or 2 years of experience. And if I ask them to in what principle the tube light works, or can you actually repair a fan, can you open and disassemble and assemble it, he cannot do it. He is not able to do it. That's the kind of quality of engineers we are churning out right now. And it's a very big problem. Many people are talking about that problem, but nobody is going inside to solve it. So in a quest to solve such an issue is where we started 21K School along with Yashwant and another co-founder. So one of the biggest inspiration for 21K School is a series of documentaries. If you've seen in YouTube, difficult ways to school. See, that actually left a very huge impact on me. Why would a kid travel 48 hours in minus 20 or 25 degrees to reach a school? Why should a kid cross lions or animals to reach a school? Why should a kid climb hills and mountains or travel through water to reach a school? Why you cannot take the school to the kid? That's that's have always been in my mind for a long. And together when the team was good and we met, all the co-founders met and we decided, yes, this is the way we have to go forward in India. So this one concept of online school will solve a lot of issues. Maybe we'll just discuss it over a period of this complete conversation. But I'll let Yashwant to introduce himself, and you should know his background because he is our backbone.
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. Yeah, hi, Eddie. Happy to talk to you on this beautiful things. I incidentally watched a couple of your past videos, and they are phenomenal. I think very insightful.
Thank you.
So I'm Yashwant Raj Paraspal. Basically, been a lifelong learner and an educationist for the last 2 decades. Been involved as a school startup consultant and expert, setting up schools, colleges, and universities across India. So through my last company, Strategem EduServe, I've been involved in setting up over 75 schools, preschools, colleges, and universities. Uh, those 11 years that I have spent with that, working across India has actually given me a lot of insights in terms of what are the problems and opportunities that we have in tier 2 and tier 3 countries. And this phenomenal talent that's available. I mean, a kid in a remote area in India is as bright as any other kid in a metro
Exactly.
city. But it's just the opportunity and the environment around him that we label him that he's not far as educated or cultured in terms of the modern environment for the business society is things. But if we give them the right opportunities and make them, I think it will be fantastic. I mean, I was born in Bangalore. I had a fantastic education in Bangalore. Studied at Baldwin Boys High School and the colleges there. My work took me to a place called Raipur. I mean, I moved to Raipur in Chhattisgarh in 2003. That was a time when probably I would have looked up at a map, not even Google Map, to find out where Raipur was. And when I came here, I was completely shocked. I mean, there is a part of India which does not have access to a good quality bookstore also. Forget about schools, colleges, or institutions. I could not find a good bookstore where I can get a English book to buy and read. Also, I mean, we're talking about 2003, not very far away. It's over less than 20 years earlier. And if you look at from that time, and my understanding completely changed of what India is. I think we harp a lot about demographic dividend, but if we don't provide high quality education to these children, toddlers, and youth in the country, this will become a demographic burden for us. And I'm sure a lot of people at the policy level are able to understand this and articulate this in their own way. But I think the action is completely missing. So I met Santosh at one of the projects where he had come down from Middle East and wanted to build a school in Shoringur, and 100 kilometers from Vellore, again a remote location. And I was signed up as his consultant to set up a school. And it was just, I still remember how quickly we were able to sync to each other in terms of our thoughts, aspirations, and what we want to do this for this country. We realized the problems and challenges of building the school in Shoringur and extrapolated our experiences, not just in India, but outside India, with Santosh having extensively traveled to more than 20 countries outside across the world. And it was a fantastic. I think we had many meaningful conversations over lunch, dinner, and late night sit outs, and we researched and then we came up with this entire thought process of setting up India's first virtual school. And the only I would say, the barrier that we saw was the mental model of a parent. Right? I mean, Back then, before the pandemic, I don't think I would have been thinking of ways of how I could convince a parent to send a kindergarten student to attend a school in the drawing room of his own home, sitting in front of the laptop. And I think we see the pandemic and the lockdown of school as a black swan event, which clearly melted the entire inhibitions or the mindset of the parents to allow children to to attend classes through the mobiles, laptop, WhatsApp, and whatever. I think we had enough stories on YouTube and elsewhere to know about it, and that's where I think Santosh and me and Dinesh Joshi, we came together, put our thoughts together, and immediately started with 21K school in June 2000 last year with 300 students. Very grateful to those parents who trusted us, trusted in our vision, believed in our abilities. And with the support of the entire teachers, the principal, the parents, I think today we have grown to about 2,500 students, offering three different curriculums. Students coming from 200 cities across India and 17 countries outside India. So we've seen a fantastic traction and adoption of 21K school, and in general, and probably the online schooling itself in particular.
June 2020, you started with 300 students, and now you have around 2,500 students. So this is the signs of the future. Things are changing rapidly, and the ones who do not understand this will be left behind. I think we are in the greatest technological transition that we're going to see this decade. Everything is going to change, some for the better, some for the bad. And if we do not leverage those insights and those opportunities, we definitely will be left behind. So Santosh was mentioning that how easy it is for us to just point and have conversations on, oh, how bad this education system is, and go to these fancy conferences and talk about the problems. But it takes a brave heart entrepreneur and a team that really believes that we need to not just talk, but put the plan in action. And you have done exactly that. And I really love the thought when Santosh said that take the school to the kids. And Yashwant, you also mentioned that India, a country with the second largest population, we've got a demographic dividend, the greatest numbers of youth. But you said that they could become demographic burden if we do not give them quality education, because education and healthcare, I think, are basic fundamental rights. And if we want our country to progress and become a superpower, it starts with education. If we have the right education, there is no stopping. There is so much you said the remote area, the students, whether it's in the rural or the urban area, if they are given the same education and the same opportunity, or country will accelerate and see real growth. So I'm really excited for that future. The traditional brick and mortar education system, which was given to us by the Britishers around 140 years back, but largely over the years, it's not seen much innovation. The rote learning education system produces stressed out students. Would you like to address that, the problem? What is the problem with the education industry, and what should be done to create a better education framework for the future?
So Eddie, if you look at the problem that's ailing our generation is, we are dealing with a completely different generation where they have, probably grown looking at mobile devices, internet, and access to a lot of information and data around. If I do a Google search right now, I can get to information to say that, the earth is not round. I mean, it's flat and square. But will the child who's Googling that information would believe that? I mean, and what would be the reasoning powers that we should develop in terms of, deciding which is the correct information to believe and what is not? So I definitely see students, even questioning the teachers today. So the whole gamut or the purpose of education has completely transformed. From a knowledge-driven schools, it has definitely seen that, in the future, growing into a skill-driven thing, because skills is something that the Google or internet would never be able to develop. It can again throw a lot of information in terms of YouTube videos and others, how to improve my communication skills, critical thinking, collaboration skills, but it cannot be done by reading. Just like you can't learn how to swim by reading a manual or books or watching video. I mean, it's the same with life today. I mean, the students will have to develop these skills, and if they have to compete and emerge as a better person than artificial intelligence or humanoids in the future, I think that's the only way that we need to focus on both heart and mind and developing the entire persona of a human being. I'm very sure that my child Hriday, he's 5 years old, and by the time he steps into the professional corporate world or the career, he will be competing with robots on for interview, for job, for
Right.
opportunities, and he will have to emerge as somebody who is much smarter than so-called artificial intelligence.
The problem is that we do not have the foresight of what's coming. Like I said, there's this technological transition which is happening, and technology is going to play such a huge role. It's going to impact and disrupt almost all of the industries. And you rightfully pointed out that maybe in another 10-15 years, there'll be humanoid robots who would be possibly your co-worker, or could be your teacher, or giving you healthcare and things like that. Santosh, would you like to take the same question, as in, what do you see are the current problems with the traditional brick and mortar education system, and what, according to you, is the impact of COVID? Has COVID been a catalyst for the education industry?
I see 2, 3 major problems in education industry. One is like the 90% of, or 95%, in fact, what we learn in school or college, we don't apply on in work. Any kind of work. Even if you want to be a typewriter or typist, you don't go and apply anything what you learn. So why is our education system aligned to something which we are not going to use in future? We should be taught, or we should be trained for something which will help in our work, right? That's what is skill. So we should be having that skill developed. Kids are so innovative and so differently thinking at the age of say 4, 5, 6, or 7 or 8. But we are killing that innovation with the present education model which we have. Like, you go to a class, you sit, your teacher will instruct you what to do. You just do that, you come back. She will say, this is how you have to start writing a paragraph. This is how you have to finish the paragraph. You just listen to that and come. But you never question, why should I do that? And no student questions. 99% of the students, they don't do it. So how will you develop a skill? Like, my daughter is teaching me a lot of things. Like, I was playing blocks with her yesterday, and I was feeling difficulty to reach a particular height. All of a sudden, she told, I have an idea. She's 4 years old. She rearranged certain blocks on the bottom, and she took the bigger blocks on the top, which I thought mathematically it is wrong to do, but it actually worked for her. The way she rearranged the block, I was shocked, and it was standing. The structure was standing, and my younger daughter was shaking it, and still the structure was standing. So it is just a spurt of innovation, right? Which kids have, and we kill it. Like, by the age of 6, 8, or 9, we kill it by sending to the students to the school. And by the age of 15 or 16, they are already dead. In terms of that is something which has to change. Like, students are not taught the right skills in the right point of time. They are only taught to memorize. Nothing is going to happen by memorizing, because all these memorizing stuffs are going to go away. You don't need a memorizing, parrot at all. Even the toy will not exist. Toys are also now becoming more intelligent. Every kid has to know analytical things, like in terms of computational thinking, coding. Every kid should know what is like Vedic mathematics, what has been in that. We should know our history. Our history actually determines our future and the thing. We should know how to, solve a problem. You take a kid, or a biggest problem we face today, like I want to hire some engineers. If I go to interview 100, I'm able to take 1 or 2. Because if you put them in a problem, they don't know how to solve it. We don't hire an engineer by a CV or its qualification or anything that have no meaning in today's date. But what we look for is, if I put him in a problem, whether that guy is able to solve it or not. See, I'm able to get 1 or 2% strike rate for an engineer. That's something is a huge problem for we as a country. So 10 years down the line, if we need to transform the country, we need to transform the education, and somebody has to do it. And we wanted to be one of the pioneers in that, and we want everybody to follow. It's not us, because in our school we have computational thinking, we have coding, we have yoga, we have skill development, we have a psychologist looking at the kids. None of our teachers will be rude to the kids. None of our teachers will be teaching rote learning. We concentrate more on skill development rather than something which you don't require for your work. So any students or anybody who is graduating out of us, we bring in entrepreneurs to talk to kids. We bring in guest lectures to talk to kids. We want to teach them financial literacy. We want to teach them everything, anything and everything to an extent it is possible by us. This thing, there is a famous dialogue in Tamil movie. It actually stuck to me. It's called "Brother Na Potadu." But அது நான் சாப்பிடுவேன்னா இல்லை என் பேர புள்ள சாப்பிடுவேன். That means have sown the seed. The tree will grow, but I will not be alive to see the tree. But my grandson will eat the fruit of it. So that doesn't mean that I should grow the tree. It is actually my responsibility to grow a tree for a plant. So that's what we are trying to do. We cannot see an output of what is happening, but this initiative and similar initiatives actually will see an output in by 2035 or 2040, and that's what we are trying to achieve.
Right. Yeah. So yes, I do hear you, because the pandemic has completely disrupted the education system. You know, there are these students who are graduating and getting into a world where there's no jobs because of the pandemic. The jobs have declined because the economy is down. So but if you see, there's goods, there's pros and cons of the pandemic. The cons have been that the entire economy has been disrupted. Education industry, healthcare, everything, travel, everything has been disrupted. But for the resilient, you know, like you guys, there is always opportunity in the problem. You guys saw the opportunity, and you guys are the first of its kind online school in India. And it always takes a brave entrepreneur to lead the way and create the path. I think maybe in this decade itself, there will be a large transition of the physical school to the online, and you are not locked to a location. You can be anywhere and everywhere, but get the same kind of learning, which I think is happening, and I think it will see. I mean, this shift is an eventuality, according to me. You mentioned that we are moving from knowledge to skills, and I think that is such an important thing, because if you see, some of the biggest companies at this point in time are spending millions of dollars on reskilling and upskilling. And the reason they're doing it that because there's somewhere down the line, the education industry has not had the foresight and not addressed that issue. If the parents and if the community and the education industry understand the benefits of an online education and what it can do for the future of learning, I think the entire learning is going to be completely disrupted. So would you like to talk a little bit more about 21K, the online, India's first online learning school? What is it that makes you unique, and what is the plan ahead? Yashwant, maybe you can take the question.
Clearly, I don't think we can prepare our children for the future, which is so uncertain. We don't know, I mean, how many more pandemics would come in the future, what kind of disruption would happen in our social lives because of the technology that's evolving so fast. But what will definitely not change is in terms of the skills and abilities which the students can be brought up with. We're talking about broadly it's jargonized to say 21st century skills, but communication skills, creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, ability to work in a team in a very collaborative way in the real world or in the virtual world. I think these skills are going to be as important today as it would be in the unseemingly uncertain future of tomorrow. So if our children are nurtured in the schools, developing certain habits of mind, which will prepare them for any kind of an opportunity ahead, then we will be actually helping the students to prepare and work for much better life, rather than conditioning ourselves to say that we'll prepare them for a particular profession or job or career. That's clearly, as Santosh was saying, that doesn't exist at all. I mean, why are we trying to see from that perspective? So definitely, I think today there are a lot of opportunities available. Uh, there is a clear mismatch in terms of the students being coming out of the so-called factory system of our education system, and there is no connect between the real world. The industry expects them to do something different, and what is really being churned out of the universities, colleges is completely a different product for which there is no taker. So it's very important that we understand what are the future requirements. I think I was just recently reading about Kunal Shah as well. So he did remark saying that I mean, he stopped recruiting people based on his graduation or degree. He says that I'm looking at your competencies, and competencies are not being defined by your qualification. Now, that's a very hard hitting statement for the entire education sector. I mean, it's a big remark about the quality of universities. And why Kunal Shah? A lot of parties worldwide, including companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, they've all stopped looking at degrees as a proof of a child's capabilities. I mean, so what does the future really entail for the higher education system in India? And if we don't bend our ways with the school education system, I am sure that the schooling itself would be a question mark. I mean, we are asking children to spend 16 years of their life. I mean, assuming an 80 years as a lifespan, one fifth of your life is being spent in school. And what is the outcome of the school? After studying for 16 years in the school, 3 years of graduation or 4 years of engineering, that's about 20 years. And after 20 years, if a child is not able to earn 20,000 per month, then what are we talking about?
Right. That's a very good point that you bring up, because I think that's largely because of traditional way of functioning. It's almost like religion, you know. It's because when you grow up, you're imposed on that, and you make up those beliefs, and you will not falter. The same way I think education is like that. Santosh, I think you were mentioning that 90% of your learnings don't apply in your real life. So there is a major problem with the education system, which actually needs to be looked at. And you also and Yashwanti mentioned about the way these new companies and startups are functioning, you know, when they are recruiting. I think Elon Musk was mentioning that he's not really looking at degrees, and I guess that's the natural trajectory of the future, because people are looking at recruits who are competent with their what they can do at and not the degrees. The entire world is shifting, and if we do not look at the wrongs that we have done over the years and correct it, I think we'll just be in that same loop. Santosh, I'll give this question to you. What, according to you, is 21K bringing or doing to change the education industry?
Very first thing which we want to be transformative is transparency. We expect transparency in everything. Has any parent ever gone inside a class or in a school or sat in the class and seen what the teacher is teaching the kids? Anytime they are just ready to take the report card. If the report card says 40 marks, they are ready to slap their kids. But if the report card says 80 marks, they are saying, okay, good, next time, fine. So our idea was only one thing. Our motto was to give personalized quality education, completely transparent, at the same time as a good price point. How do we do it? It's only possible by removing the infrastructure cost part of it and build something unique. Like we are building a deep technologies within a year time or something. Our technology or whatever platform we are using right now will completely transform in itself to make it more personalized. Right now, in our personalized learning, we understand where the kid is weak. We understand where the kid is going wrong by various assessment, assignment, the self-learning and everything. And again, the teacher is able to, teach that to the kid or conduct remedial classes. We also identify some problems in the kid like dyslexia or any learning disorder or anything. We are able to identify it real time and give suggestions, counseling to the parents how to manage it. The world's top education is in Finland. They don't have an exam system at all. There is no portion completion. There is nothing. What they monitor is learning, whether the kid has learned. Every kid will be proficient in four minimum language in Finland. Four minimum languages. We are so worried about mathematics and science, but we just forget the importance of a language because it actually opens up a human brain. That neurological development, that creativity, innovation, it comes from language actually. Language teaches you culture. So these are all the things which we are trying to transform in 21K school by giving you choice of language, like learning path we actually personalize. We understand what the kid is good at. We understand what the kid is has to improve, and we are also designing a system or the course for our school kids. Starting from 8th grade to 12th grade, the courses will run. By the time the kid passes out of 12th grade in another 2 or 3 years down the line, he will be skilled to work in a real software company or a real electrical company or something. This is a like real-time skill development program. We are trying to transform Indian education in the way like US it is going to happen. Elon Musk, he never sent his kids to school by only one reason that he doesn't want his kids also to be dumb. He dropped out of college for the same reason. I'm not saying by going to school the kids are becoming dumb, but the reason is because you are in a black box. Parents are questioning everything, but they are not questioning the complete education system. We wanted to create a system where everybody is, understanding the importance of it, understanding the overall benefit which they are going to get out of it. NEP is a fantastic implementation that the government is trying to do, but NEP will be successful only if the stakeholders are aligned to it. Like it totally depends on teachers. If you see, NEP has a lot of good features in terms of quality, skill building, skill importance on skill education for the kids, motor learning and everything. But if you don't have teachers who can teach that, how that can be implemented effectively? First, we need to train the teachers because teacher training is one of the biggest issue in today's day. See, during 20 years, 25 years now, before when we were studying, whoever had passion for teaching, they used to be the teachers. But unfortunately, today's date, 60 to 80% of the teacher who comes to teaching professions are that way. They didn't get job in anywhere. Like we have so many teachers interviewing who have done BA, BE, ME or BTech, MTech, and then they have done B.Ed and they want to come and teach. So that's the overall scenario in education today's day, and that's something has to transform. This will not transform by like individual. It will only transform by technology. And in terms of like affordability of technology, everybody now asks us like if you are giving it at a particular price point, people can have a laptop and study. I am saying governments within 2 years, next 2 years, I have seen in every manifesto of the government for last 1 year, and it will come in every government manifesto in next 1 or 2 years. They will provide free laptops and tabs. So where is the even with internet? So where is the problem of device availability? It's like they were providing free rations. They will provide everybody with free laptop and tab. That's the government can do. But how do we, as a technology, how do we develop technology so that every kid is able to, do sustain, gets that, education without, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their caste, creed, or economic situation? How do we reach them? How, like, it's a very huge problem for a lot of companies to solve. Again, I'm telling 21K school alone cannot solve it. We can bring in the concept of transparency, personalized learning, and affordability price. But how do we bring it much more down? Today, our average price point is around 40,000. How do we bring it to 20,000? How can we bring it to 15,000? This is what we think day in and day out. How do we reach the lowest guy in the food chain or the poverty line? How do we educate him?
Santosh, I think I really like the passion at which you are addressing the education system, and it's like, I mean, I've said this a couple of times, I mean, through the conversation, but I think we need brave entrepreneurs such as yourself who have a vision and are focused on solving the problem. Yes, there is a problem with the education system, and you mentioned the price points, which is really, really reasonable, and you're saying you want to go even lower than those price points. But I guess that would be the only way to democratize education and create India that can truly say that now we are a global superpower, because 100% literacy, we have 100% literacy. I personally believe that in this decade itself, there will be almost maybe like a huge percentage shift of brick and mortar education systems to the online schools. The smart people will definitely move on, because it's plain to see the online school is providing the same thing for far, far lesser the price, and is adding more innovation and thinking in a way to create a deeper impact with the education system. Now, not everything of the online education system is really good. It's got loads of pros, but there are a few cons also, which needs to be addressed. Are you looking at or thinking about the numbers of hours that kids are spending in front of their computers and the laptops, and do you have data, and what would be the impact of something like that? Yashwant, do you want to address that?
The way I'll spend a little few minutes on explaining how the online schooling model works with 21K School. So our students attend classes in two different batches. So they have flexibility to choose and attend classes either in the morning batch or in the afternoon batch. Typically, a student from grade 1 to 5 would just spend 3 hours per day, 6 days a week. That's about 18 hours per week with the online classes that happens. Now, these 3 hours are benchmarked with the WHO standards in terms of the screen time. Similarly, at the early years, we have 3 to 4 year old students just attending classes for 1 hour, and 2 hours for the kindergarten. That's 4 to 6 years. At the senior classes, it's maximum close to about 4 hours. Now, when the students attend, there is a lot of research and data which is also available on the net, which clearly shows that not all screen time are bad, especially the ones where you have a human at the other end of the screen when you're having a conversation or you're speaking to it. What really impacts the eyes? I mean, recently we had spoken to a very reputed ophthalmologist from Bombay. So he mentioned that if the child takes care of certain things, like blinking the eyes frequently. Now, when you are watching a video or you're gaming on the device, which there is no human interaction on the other side, by default, by nature, the eyes gets strained more because you don't blink as frequently as that. But when you are conversing with a person, with a teacher in the class, and there are another about 24 students also in the class, you would not freeze your eyes and the way you would do in terms of playing games and others. So I think there is a lot of data which is available which says that screen time is not really bad, especially with the human interaction. But also, let me quickly add here saying that it's not just about the screen time. I mean, taking care of the personal, social, and emotional development of the child as a part of the schooling process is going to be very critical. So socialization may not happen exactly with my virtual classmates in the school, but it does happen largely with his friends and communities outside the school, outside his home, and it happens very effectively. So contrary to what people would believe, a learning schedule of 3 hours just has 3 periods per day, which means each period is for 1 hour duration. Now, that is more than what a teacher would spend in a physical school, where the period time is typically 35 to 40 minutes. But you'd probably expect, as an online school, the time slots would be actually lesser, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so to give rest. But again, based on our research and discussions with psychologists and how to hold the attention span of a child, so we said that 1 hour actually gives a lot of flexibility to the teachers, where they can have a proper introduction, warming up time with the class. They do give movement breaks between the class, and then we end the class with a proper recap. So that's a very transformational thing to do, because we have condensed the entire 6 hours, 10 minutes of a regular school schedule to just 3 hours per day without compromising on a single minute for the time allocated for the core subjects. So what we have essentially done is that removed the periphery time that gets consumed in form of GK classes, SUPW, moral science, short recess, long recess, 20 minutes of assembly time. So that is what we have eliminated. So at as an online school, I can tell you with a lot of responsibility that we are not compromising on the academic rigor, whether it's in the form of student engagement or the syllabus to be completed, curriculum that's involved, or the assessments, the attendance part. Everything is at par with any other reputed school in the country. In every class that we have today, we have a mix of students coming from different nationalities, different countries, different cities, different cultural and social orientations, and it's a fantastic interaction. I mean, I'll give you an example where I overheard a conversation just recently. A child from Chennai is speaking to his friend in the school who's from Chandigarh, and he's speaking about Baisakhi and he's speaking about Pongal. And it's celebrated at the same time. And look at the weather conditions; they were amazed. I mean, he's saying it's hot and sultry in Chennai, and he's saying it's cool and pleasant in Chandigarh, and we all are in the same country. So that impact of understanding of the nations and the diversity, I think no other teacher would have delivered that so emphatically as that conversation would have actually given. So definitely as an online school, I think as Santosh mentioned about transparency, flexibility, personalization, convenience of getting, having a very data-driven approach towards child's learning because of the technology involved. We have fantastic data streams to say how the child is actually progressing on learning. We are not dependent on year-end term tasks to tell us that the child is not performing good. There could be many factors and reasons for it, but if I knew this in much advance, I can do a remedial right then, rather than waiting for the year end and then doing some kind of summer activities trying to prep him up for the next grade. That's a disaster in making. So I think that's a big transformation. The impact of it may not be known immediately, but I definitely in the long term we see a huge change, and child's upbringing, skill development, and his understanding of the world around us is going to completely transform.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the pros of remote learning. I mean, you can interact with people from around the world. So how cool is that we are slowly and steadily completely redefining our education industry. There was a time where we used to sit in classrooms next to each other, but now we can be sitting with someone who's possibly sitting in America and having a conversation and understanding his culture, and possibly maybe also a teacher which could be remotely anywhere. So I think we're getting into a great space now. As a school, I mean, when I was growing up, my favorite subject happened to be sports. Now, is there a way to emulate sport, or teach sports in online learning? Is that something that you're considering or figuring out?
So at 21K, we have accepted this fact. Because it's virtual school, we can't really teach them skills of dribbling or basketball or cricket shots. It would be simply unwise, and we don't want kids to learn sitting in front of laptop, because this is something which has to be practiced. And we respect the individuality of the child. So in my school, the students could also be looking at maybe different things. Or maybe some students are simply not interested in sports. So they may be interested in music, art, or robotics, coding. So the parents are free to decide, because we free the child's time. So imagine the 8 hours of schedule which a student has, that's getting compressed to 3 hours because of the reduced travel time and the school hours. So effectively, each child gets 5 hours of extra time. Now the parent is at his own thing. I mean, because he understands the child much better than I would or any teacher would. And he can choose whether my son should practice football, cricket, or hockey, tennis, taekwondo, karate, martial arts. Now, there's umpteen choices available in the cities around us today, and we could choose what is most suitable for them.
Fair enough. I think, yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it gives you that added time advantage because you're not spending in commuting from, going to the school and coming back. So fair enough. So, Santosh, this question is for you. Technology is growing exponentially, and I'm vested in augmented reality, virtual reality, and AR, VR, I think is going to be like the future of education because experiential learning, we learn best when we experience thing. Are you looking at leveraging and what is the role according to you of technology in the future of learning?
Of learning will be completely driven by technology. As I was mentioning before, it will nothing to do with the infrastructure of the school. How I foresee is, for example, Geo has come up with Geo Glass, AR glass. People have seen in the news, and it's expected to be between 14 to 15,000 or 20,000. One reason why AR and VR was not much adopted in India because of the cost of the goggles and the internet speed. With 5G coming in, and the cost of goggles going down with players like Geo, I foresee like within like next 5 to 6 years down the line, how education or the teaching will happen is we will be having a gloves, for the synaptic purpose, and we will be just wearing a glass like this, maybe a blinded glass, and you will enter an augmented reality environment, a virtual environment, wherein students will be like they are sitting in a class, they are sitting in a chair, and they will be experiencing. They will have a globe in front of them. They can just rotate the globe, understand, read. So it will be completely transformative. Yeah, they will enter a virtual environment like game. Actually, we are planning for it, and the technologies and the ideas which we are building around UNK school is completely aligned with it. We are not working for today, but we are working for which is going to happen next year, 6 years or 8 years or 10 years down the line. So that's how our aims are, and people will adopt. See, technology adoption, many people think it's actually limited to rich class or higher society, but you started the keynote with Mr. Bagchi's experiment. That itself proves that technology is not for bigger people or something. It's for everyone. The kids can find their way out. You give anything. See, I'll give more examples of my daughter. She found a way to actually open WhatsApp and call when she was not able to talk properly at the age of 2 or 3. I was totally shocked. Totally. As you cannot predict kids, like they are not like kids like us. We used to struggle a lot to play a proper game at the age of 6 or 8 or 9, but these kids are, so technology, the way the technology is developing, kids will also develop fast, and they will not at all have any problem handling technology or getting used to this technology or getting used to the new learning environment. It is only that we need to be open minded in order to expose, like that screen time is a myth which is actually spoken by a lot of ophthalmologists, which people don't listen to. See, there are a huge amount of private schools who are taking 50,000, 60,000, 80,000 fees, but nobody is using a tab or nobody is using interactive learning methodology. Why not? My question is, why not? It's available even for free. Why people are not? They are afraid of exposing kids to YouTube. You have regulated contents in YouTube for kids. Like, kids can only see that set of content. It's the myth which people are, or a set of people are creating, and it's like fear which is being induced on parents. But parents also should understand it's more than that. Your kid is capable of doing more than that. Yes, there should be some content moderation that is possible. You buy a Chromebook, 25,000-30,000 Chromebook, it comes with all content moderation. They cannot see certain things in the internet and everything. You give it that to kids, because instead of giving your phone to play games, you can actually give the kids the complete encyclopedia. Like when we were growing up, we didn't have Google to learn so much. Okay, but kids have everything. So what I say is, even a 10th or 12th standard kids can attain an engineering level proficiency if they are guided well, if they are augmented with technology. If not, if we are fearing technology, if we are fearing screen time, a lot of myths around it, then it will be a bit difficult. Like, parents have to understand what is good for their kids and what is not. At the end of the day, we can only facilitate parents. It's parents' decision. End of the day, we are not forcing anyone, but yeah, they should come out of that myth. They should let kids read. The biggest problem
Right.
in what I think is reading habit.
Exactly.
Why
Starts there.
you are not teaching them reading habit? You want them to study science for years, hours together. You have to force reading them novel. Weekly once novel or monthly once you finish a novel. That reading habit is something which will open up, creativity and innovation in kids. Parents are failing in that. They are ready to buy encyclopedia and put it in front of the kid, but they are not ready to buy a good novel and give it to them.
Missing out the basics, because yes, you rightfully pointed out, it needs to start with the basic. Reading is such a great habit to form if you want to be, become a lifelong learner.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Lifelong learner. Kindle.
you-
It's now 9,000 rupees Kindle is enough. You give it to your kid. He will read it. He will change transformatively. But they are not ready to expose it to Kindle also.
Yashant, you were saying something.
Eddie, that fear of technology is probably going to be the biggest stumbling block for people's progress or our society's progress, I would say. I think as Santosh was saying, there are, I can definitely tell you today that, whether there's pandemic or no pandemic, I think the online world is far more safe and secure for the child than the real world today. That's a harsh reality. We may deny this fact, but that's a fact. And the parents, if they just spend some time to understand how they can keep the kids safe from YouTube and screen glare and other things, there are fantastic tools available. I think it's important to adopt the technology because that's the future.
Right. So yeah, Santosh was mentioning about experiential learning, and during the pandemic, peak of the pandemic, there was this government school in Kerala which was leveraging augmented reality. So the teachers were so I believe that the only way for learning is when you experience it, when you get your hands dirty rather than the rote learning when you're memorizing it. So augmented reality, it's no longer science fiction. It's being used today, and there are government schools who are leveraging that, where teachers were showing these digital models of these planetary solar systems, and kids could see it, and feel it, that this is how it is, rather than just to read it in books. So I think that there is a change which is happening, and yes, that the block needs
That
to
happened
be
only in Kerala. I have to actually say that happened only in Kerala because Kerala government was the only government when we were analyzing was having a complete ERP and LMS solution well before COVID, like 3 years, 4 years before they have implemented, they have digitized a lot of things. That was not done by any other state. I'm not against anything.
Yes, yeah, but I
it was
hope
the best thing Kerala did.
I hope that the other states implement, because that is the future. And we like you mentioned about your daughter. I have got a son who's 6 years old, and he is learning by himself. So when I grew up, we used to use a remote for TV, or the first TV was where there's no remote. You had to actually get up, change the knobs, and tweak the knobs. It was a black and white TV and things like that. But right now, my son talks to the TV. So Amazon Alexa, he talks to the TV, and that we be getting into the world where I think even writing is becoming a lost art, which I think somebody needs to address that, because more and more people are getting digitized, because it's an eventuality. We have seen that digitization has helped us so much. Just 20-25 years back, there was no mobile phones, and there was no 30 years back, there was no internet, and nobody was connected. But today, we have the freedom or the opportunity to sit anywhere around the world, connect, reach out, create businesses, create opportunities. And that's happening only because of technology, World Wide Web, your computers, your mobiles, and so on and so forth. And these technology, I think, it is growing exponentially. And if we start leveraging those tools, I think our future will be bright. And I'm not saying that everything about technology is good. It's a double-edged sword. We need to tread carefully. But if we handle the vulnerable and understand what is good for mankind and go towards that path, I think the future will be really bright. Now, all schools depends upon great teachers, because if you have a great teacher, you have a great school. Globally, teachers have been underpaid, and I think that is a major problem. Is 21K online school cognizant about that, and what is it that you guys are doing?
Teachers are indeed the backbone of the school, right? Not just for the school, but for students. as someone said, you would never be able to measure the influence a teacher has on a child. And we definitely recognize this. In fact, one of the first decisions that we took, that we have decided and kept our own minimum pay, which is much better than what most of the schools, I would say at least 80-90% of the schools would offer to a school with our fee bracket. So it's we are definitely looking at that. And also, I'd like to add here, Eddie, is that the fact that we've seen many teachers joining back the professional career, which they had discontinued long back because they didn't had an opportunity to travel to a school and work there. So these are all passionate teachers, but with the culture and the society around us, with the responsibilities at home, weigh in so much that the teacher or the lady of the home would give up her career. And we're quite happy and excited about the fact that with 21K school, we are seeing that opportunities being provided to all those teachers who have been so passionate as an educator, and they could teach from the comforts of their home without having to step out of the house and interact with students from across the world as well.
Right, right.
Definitely, the teachers are very thankful.
Right. Yeah. Would you like to talk about affiliations, accreditation of your schools? Because if a graduate student, if they graduate from your school, what are the support system built in?
So all programs are accredited. So the Indian program that we have is through the National Institute of Open Schooling. The American program through our partners is again affiliated, accredited with Cognia, which is a US body. The Cambridge program that we offer through our partners in the NISAI is again affiliated with Cambridge International Examinations UK. Similarly, the British curriculum that we offer directly at 21K is through the affiliation from Edexcel, which is the UK board. And very important to understand, just like any other school, all our students would also appear for the exit level examinations at grade 10 and 12 under the supervision, control, and the examination of the respective boards. So 21K, just like any other school, would not give their own certificates at 10th and 12th. This will be given by the respective boards and which have a global recognition and acceptance worldwide. So it does not make any difference for the students' part or the recognition aspect of it.
What's the future vision or roadmap of 21K school? I think both of you can take that question.
To create 100 more virtual schools.
Yashwant.
I would say, to bring back the joy and meaning for the school education so that the future, the parents do not hesitate to commit 16 years of child's education to schooling. And I think we can disrupt that with technology. I truly believe that, when my father was in a school, for him, the chalk and the slate was a technology. When I was in the school, the ballpoint pen and the fountain pens were the technology. Today, the finger is a technology, but we're talking about handheld devices, computers, and laptops. We simply need to adopt and accept the realities of today. Move with the thing. The technological world is progressing far faster, and as a nation, as a society, as a people, as a community of parents, we need to catch pace with the developments happening in the real world.
And what would be your pitch to parents who are listening in? And what would you tell them about your school?
We want to create the happiest classrooms in the world, so that if your kid is happy to go to class each and every day, learning is taken care of. So that's what, as a 21K school, we want to create.
So profound, May you have more than 100 schools. May you have really happy kids, and I hope that you two and the team will transform the future of education. There are so many wrongs with the education system, but that, I think, is an opportunity for you guys to kind of change that. I think the future of education looks super, super exciting, and I think it's a $1 billion business. If somebody cracks it, I think it's not just going to be economically beneficial, but it's going to create a country which is really going to be a super power. So thank you for being part of the Power Podcast and sharing your insight. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you.